Hey folks, welcome back to the Portable Gamer, welcome back to Farming Simulator 19, and welcome back to Charwell. It's going to be kind of I don't know about this episode. We'll see how it goes. We've got one thing that we want to do. We want to plant some canola, and we want to do it with Tramlines. Now I got this field going. Let's turn this back on. This is field 79, and I got it done with Tramlines in 17, and I really don't want to be forever comparing 17 to 19. But in 17, we could use the GPS mod by Upside Down, I believe. Could be wrong. And the Proceed mod, I don't even know who made the Proceed mod, but we could combine those two, and we could get some really good, accurate, authentic tramlines. We don't have that in 19, and I don't know why. I don't know if the underlying code of the game is different in a way that doesn't allow those things, or if the modders just... who knows? I would like to see those things in base game. There are a lot of things I would like to see in base game, but I understand that the realistic and sort of grindy is how I heard a person describe it in the comments. The grindy way that we play, it's not necessarily the way a lot of other people want to play. And so I don't know that we're going to see some of those things, but I'll talk about those things. The main thing we want to do today is we want to get this field 80, planted with some tram lines. We're going to do our best. Right, so we come right back up here, start it up, and here we go. So last episode of Charwell, I was trying and not really succeeding in describing something that I had seen when I was growing up in Pennsylvania. When you drive past a farmer field, you would see kind of a zigzag pattern, kind of a stair-step pattern at the end of rows, and what that is if the longest length, you always want to do the longest possible run in a field. If the longest length that you can run in a field does not end perpendicular to the edge of the field, if it ends at an angle, you can't necessarily take your... you know what, let's do it here. Let's step out of immersion just for a moment, and we'll pretend that the heading that I'm on right now, I know we're driving across a field, it's simply for a demonstration. If we're driving across a field like so, right, if this heading that we're on right now, if this is the longest length that we can achieve in that field, that's the runs that we want to do. When we get to the edge of the field, right about here, I'm going to lift the implement. And so on the left side, just between the tractor and the implement, there's going to be that little triangle, right? And then the next row to the left, there'll be another one and another one. And so you have that little stair-step pattern up the side of the field. A lot of people in Farm Sim, what they'll do afterwards then is just come across it right here, right? And just reseed those areas that they've already seeded to get rid of those little stair steps. And they call it a headland. It's, everybody plays differently, and however you play this game, however you enjoy this game, that is the way you should be playing it. I personally want everything that I do to be as close as possible to what a real farmer would do. I know it can't be 100%, but I'd like to be close. So that's sort of where we end up with the tram lines. And you know what, let's open this up. There's one more thing I want to show you. I know we're driving all over this field. It's demonstration. We'll step back into the immersion momentarily. So here's something else. Different drills, different seeders. Like this one, this field is cultivated, but we could just as easily be doing this in a plow texture field because this does have the cultivator feature up front. This is a direct drill. But different seeders and different planters have different, there are some that from this point right here, the physical front of the mod, this is where your seeded texture would begin. So anything that these wheels cross while the implement is running and down will be seeded. Other mods from this point to say this point would be the cultivated texture, and everything from here to here would be seeded. And why that's important is when you get to the end of a row and you have to lift, right? You want, when you start your next row, so we're going to come out here and turn around, right? We want our next row, when we come back here, and when we lower the tool, we want those ends to be at the same place this way. And ideally that distance, right, this distance from right here to the edge of the field is exactly the width of the tool. right? And then we can do a proper headland where we tie everything together and it's all good and wonderful. Doesn't always work out that way. I would love to see lasers, freaking lasers. I would love to see, you could turn them on and off, of course, if you wanted to, but I would love to see, say, a green indicator here, a little green bar superimposed, and perhaps a red one here to indicate where those different things are. And then you have another set of corresponding red and green bars displayed on the field, so you know where to lift your implement. You could turn them off if you want to do it by eye. It's no different than this implement has ridge markers. You can use them if you want to go super old school, but we also have GPS, which we're going to use today, and you can use that if you prefer. So nobody's locked into anything, but I would like to see some of those things. And that's, as I said earlier, there are a lot of things I'd like to see added to this game, and I sort of know they never will be, but that's okay. And I also know, last thing, I also know that in real life, there is quite a bit going on with GPS and half row cutoff, selective row cutoff. There are different things you can do where as you're making a turn, the outside of your drill will be planting seeds faster, essentially, and the inside will be planting slower. So as you go around that radius, you're going to have actually 3 radiuses. One radius for the tractor, one radius for, if we were making a left turn, one small radius for the left side of the implement, one larger radius for the right side. So with GPS and planning software and everything else, you can calculate the rate at which the seeds are put in the soil. So all your plants end up the same distance apart, whereas if it was static, right, if everything was delivered at the same rate, your plants on the inside would be all on top of each other. Your plants on the outside of that turn would be very far apart from one another. So in some ways, those headlands around the outside of a field, we're going to reset that right there, and then we're going to turn around, go right around here. So with some of those software tools and GPS tools, what you could actually do is make that headland that bothers me so much, but because the software and the GPS would be working together to turn things on and off, that headland would actually, it would work. So let me see if this is correct. It is correct. Okay, fantastic. I just sort of lucked into the right place here. What we're going to do is try to zigzag this field with proper tramline rows, and then make one non-tramline headland around the outside, right? So looking here now on the right side of this, we're in a length right now. To our right will not be a tramline. The length that we're in will be a tramline. The one to our immediate left will not be. This is an 8-meter tool. If we then get a 24-meter spreader and drive it down this length, it will cover both the left and the right. And we'll try to repeat this pattern across the field and then put in a headland. That is the goal. That is the goal. And we're doing this with, this is the CTF Tramline add-on. I don't know. So, GPS. We select this tool, turn it on. We select this tool, we activate Tramlines. We go back here and lower, and then cruise control. And yep, we are laying in tramlines. A little bit of grass that I missed when I cultivated the field. It happens. So if this all works out correctly, then it'll all work out correctly. The biggest problem that I have is when I get to the end of the length here is when to lift, and then for our corresponding row, when to drop. And that's always been my nemesis. The nice thing with GPS and Proceed was it kept count for you, so you would at least know which rows would get tramlines. In fact, with Proceed it was automated, but you could do it manually and turn the tramlines on and off yourself. But it would tell you which rows to put them in. You just had to remember to turn it on and off, or you could let it be all automatic. And with GPS, you could get warnings as you got close to the end of a row. Not so. So we're just going to need to eyeball it. But again, I don't know where the various functions are in this tool. So if we stop right about here, right? Hopefully we don't get snagged in this bush. It's entirely possible that we will. Before I forget, first thing, we're going to turn off the tramline feature. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. I don't think our implement is going to make it. Is it? Is it? Sweet. Tap dancing Moses it is. All right. So we come right back out here. Confirm. Not going to make tram lines. That's correct. Back on GPS. Lower. Cruise control. Here we go. I think I could have fun either way. I think if there was another screen that you bounced out to and you were in your office at your farm and you were, right, you had all your fields laid out, you had your crops, you had all your implements had been put into the system so that the software knows the width of your, in this case, your drill. It knows the width of your fertilizer spreaders, sprayers, etc. And it calculates out, this is the volume of seed that you need, this is the volume of fertilizer that you're going to need, this is the amount of fuel that you're going to need. That'd be nice. And then it essentially pushes everything to your tractor, including the patterns that you'll drive in the field. It's got the selective row cutoff for your drill. It's got all that stuff. Selective nozzle cutoff for a sprayer. You know what I'm talking about. I think that would be fun. I know there are some farmers that would prefer to do it all manually, and of course it would need to be optional. You could do it manually if you wanted to. But if you wanted to use that technology, you would have that option as well. So now this row, I think of these as sets. The row that we just finished was the end of that set on the right. And now this is the first row of this new set. So we come in here, right? GPS, come right up here, right about here, right? No tram lines in this row. Cruise control, here we go. So yeah, I can think of, for me personally, I can think of a lot of different directions that I would like the sim to go in. And sadly, I think it is not going in any of those directions. Very fortunate to have 17, where we still have some of those mods and tools. And, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, it's a video game. It's nothing worth getting really fired up about. It's just something we do and have fun, and we've all got our different ideas about how to farm and how we should farm and how to play the game and what's difficult and what's just being silly. You know, you do you. You play this game however you want to play it and just have as much fun as you possibly can. It's a great sim. 17 and 19, they're both great. I know. It sounds like I'm always talking down on 19, but here I am playing it, right? I've got, what, 500, 600 hours in this sim? Can't be that bad. All right, so we go here, we lift. These are actually coming out pretty even, and I am pleased about that. Wow. Somewhat. Okay, so now we want this right here. Back on GPS. In fact, let's back up a little bit because the one next to us is a little bit, right? Not quite as far out as we could have gone. Cruise control back on before I forget. Tram lines back on. Lower. We're in forward gears. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I've gotten out of sync on this a couple times, and then when you come back in with your sprayer or your broadcast spreader, you're out of sync. You are, is that right? Yeah, that's right. You're either overlapping or there's a big gap. And particularly for sort of irregularly shaped fields, I guess that's what I was getting at before, is I know there is software in the real world to program your GPS to move through a field like that in the most efficient way possible. So you're getting every possible square meter of that field. It's all being used, but you're not backtracking or driving over areas that you've already seeded. It's essentially course play, but in real life. I know that exists, and I would love to see that be part of this game. I think that'd be fun. And it would definitely educate people to the technology that is being used on farms today, which fascinates me. It really, really does. Okay, so we lift. Before I forget, we turn off tram lines. Yeah, I stopped a little early there. Could have gone a bit further, but there's a little bush here I want to turn around in. And then this row here will be the end of this set. So, set the cruise control. Pull forward a little bit. Maybe not that far. Yeah, again, there's that little... if there was some way to know exactly when to lift. Right, so we drop here. Tram lines are off. Is that right? That's right. We drop here. And this is the last row of this set. And the reason I keep repeating that, I swear, I've forgotten this so many times and just lost count. And once you're over on the far side of the field, looking back here from the drone cam, right, like this, you can't always see what the correct spacing is. And if you get out and just try to walk between them, that doesn't really tell you anything anyway, because now your angle is so low, right, as when we were looking at field 79, looking at the tram lines in that field, you really can't tell how far apart they are when you're at ground level. So if you screw up, as I have many times, if you screw up, there's not that many ways to fix it. I mean, with this being a direct drill, you can actually go back in, break the immersion, just go back in and plant over a tramline row to fix it, make it a non-tramline row, and then put tram lines in where they weren't before. You can do that, depending on what your priorities are, whether you would rather be immersed and realistic, or whether you would, I think right about there, or whether you would prefer to have the field look perfect when it's done. Right, so now this is the first row of the next set, and we do not want, let's go right about there, we do not want tram lines here. So back on GPS, drop the implement, here we go. All right, that's not bad. This end is fairly even. It's this end, because we've got a slight angle to the edge of the field. But you know what? These are the problems we got to solve as a farmer. Right. So this is the first length of my new set, which means the next one, when we come back in the opposite direction, we will be making tram lines. Okay. How are we doing on time? 17 minutes. We may get this field done. You know what? I'll go ahead and finish, because I would like to get to the headland part. I'd like to just get that done. So let's do that. Now, if we wanted to be super, super correct, we would do this. I'll describe it to you. I can't really show it to you. I can describe it to you. We are leaving one width. We're trying to leave one 8-meter headland, right? If we really wanted to be super legit, we would actually be stopping 16 meters from the edge of the field. And we would come back in and put 2 headlands in. The innermost headland would have a tram line all the way around the field. The outermost one would not. But what that would mean is our tram line rows, you can see one right there, we would need to turn off the tram lines and actually plant the final 8 meters of that row, so that because now we're going to have an outer headland, no tram line, an inner headland, tram line. It's 8 meters wide, but then in this case to the left of it would be another 8 meters of fertilizer. So we wouldn't need the end of these rows, the final 8 meters of these rows, to have fertilizer, because the headland tram lines would cover it. Does that make sense? I know it can all be done. I know it can. Just not by me. I can't write Lewis scripts. Are you kidding me? Right. So another row of tram lines. I have seen people do that. I've seen people do that in 17. I imagine using Proceed and a whole lot of experience and a whole lot of OCD. I've seen it done. It's beautiful. I did it, I think if you go back to Lone Oak in 17. I want to say there are 2 videos. One is me. Yes. Yeah. In fact, you know what? I will link it at the end of this video. Normally I link 2 playlists, but I'm going to link that video of me doing my personal tramline tutorial. Yeah. So it can be done. It can be done. I'm not sure how to do it with the tools that we have in 19. Right. Time. 20 minutes. Maybe we get done. I'm just going to go till we get to the headland. I want you to see that part. So, right here, maybe just a bit further. So we lift, we turn that off, right? Come off GPS, drive through the bush, and then right back here. And this will be the last length. Yeah, this will be the last length of this set. Okay? Drop the implement, cruise control, here we go. I also think, I guess I should have said this sooner, but I also think we are going to, next episode we will be harvesting these fields. Maybe next episode we spray these fields because we will have the tram lines. So yeah, maybe we'll spray some nice golden canola. That's always a very pretty thing to look at in farm sim. Easy on the eyes, those golden canola fields. Maybe we'll come in and spray these, but then the episode after that we will be harvesting, and I think that could be the end of this map. Reason being, this save game is really broken. I don't think it's the map, I think it's my save game, but it is broken. And we can't use courseplay, we can't use AI helpers, we can't get into one of our sheds, we can't get into our sheep meadow. And we could start a new save game up north on this map, so we're not doing the same work twice. And we would be, let's to maintain immersion, let's just say that we sold the sheep farm, we sold all these fields, and we moved up north and started over, or whatever. But the other possibility is we just start doubling up episodes on Western Shore. So let me know what you think of either one of those options. This is the first length of our next set. Okay, tool is down, cruise control, here we go. I like this map, I really do. It's just not cooperating. So we can, either one of those are fine. We can call it and wrap things up for this map. We can go to a new map, or we can double up Western Shore, or we can continue with this map with a new save game. I'm okay with any of those options. But it's possible that we'll just wrap up. We'll do a harvest, we'll bring in a bunch of canola, and we're done. We're moving on. But I'm not super particular about how things work out. I do like the birds. I have to admit, I do like the birds. I was a little irritated when 19 first came out because we got horses that nobody wanted. We got birds. Oh, look, birds. But they've grown on me. I like the birds now. I would like to see the birds reprogrammed to follow behind the drill and attack the soil as they do in real life. Right, that was, let's just confirm, that was the first length of our new set, which means we need to turn Tramlines on. Let's do that before we forget. Turn around in the bush. And like so. Right about here. Yeah, right about here. Back on GPS. Lower the implement, cruise control, and we are rolling. I mean, in a way, if all we ever had for Tramlines is what we have right there, if we didn't mess with the headlands, if we didn't, if it was just what we're looking at right there, particularly when the fields are growing, wheat fields or, like I said, canola fields, it really looks good. So if all we ever had was those, in this case, east to west tram lines and nothing else, I'd still take it. I like the way that looks. And I can't believe it's not a part of base game. It really should be. And it should have been for a while. Because the code is, I wouldn't say that it's easy to write. I can't do it. But when you look at something like Proceed, it's a tiny little app. It's a tiny little mod. I believe that the developers of Giants could have come up with something like that. And I've seen people say on Reddit and on the Giants forums, I've seen people say, hey, when you write a piece of code, turn Tramlines off, when you write a piece of code, it's copyrighted. It's no different than a book. Now, technically, it's copyrighted when you create it. So there's a difference between copyright and proving copyright. As soon as you write something, you own it. But there are some steps you need to take, and you should take, to be able to prove that you own it. So it's not as simple as Giants just taking a look at all the mods on the mod hub and picking the ones that they like and saying, yes, these are now a part of the game. That's illegal. You can't do that. And you also can't just pretend to rewrite the code yourself. There is, in fact, there are companies that will do this for you. There is an elaborate process wherein you essentially go through all the steps that you would take to do something, right? You completely reverse engineer it, and then you forward engineer it, and you go through all those steps, and you do so in a way that you can try. It's not always successful, but you can try to tell a judge or a jury, these are the steps we took to develop this thing that is identical to the thing that someone else developed. And there have been cases where people have said, sure, it's the same, but we did come up with it ourselves. Yeah, okay. That's a gray area. So there is some logic to Giants saying, hey, you know, we can't just get to the end of this row right here. We can't just say that we own a mod. We can't just say that we own someone else's IP, someone else's copyrighted material. We don't. I think a lot of modders would be happy to sell, you know? And if somebody said, oh, sure, I'll sell you my mod for $1 million. Well, okay, then. You're just being silly. But I think a lot of people would sell their mod to Giants for, I don't know, $5,000. Well, whatever hours they put into it, who knows? But I think people would be willing to do that. People that are very interested in the franchise and committed to the game. It's a little bit of money in their pocket. You know, I mean, the first time they made it, they essentially gave it away. Why wouldn't they be willing to sell it? So that's a possibility. It's also possible, and forget reverse engineering, sometimes it's possible to just actually come up with it on your own. They did it this way. I'm going to do it a different way. The results will be different, but it's working toward the same goal. Right? So that's a possibility as well. So some of these mods, that's what I'm getting at, is some of these mods, they're so lightweight. They're, you know, a few hundred lines of code, 200, 500, 1,000 lines of code. I don't know how many hours that took. I mean, I knew people, when I was in software, I knew people that could write 1,000 lines of code in an afternoon and test it. So who knows? But let's confirm here, this is the first row of our new set. So as soon as we lift this, before I forget, turn this on. Go right over here. So I don't necessarily buy the Giants' argument that we can't use those mods, or we can't just take mods from people. I mean, those are true facts. I'm not disputing that those are true facts. But I feel sometimes that Giants uses that as an excuse to not bring some mod content into base game. And of course, as always, it would need to be things that you could turn off. Right? A lot of players aren't going to want those things. Or it could be specific to PC. That's a little bit more of a gray area. Because once you put something in a game, right, you are going to have people, you're going to have console players say, well, hey, wait a minute. We paid the same amount, but they got more. Why am I paying for things that I can't use? Why am I paying for things that you developed, right? You spent money developing them. And we all paid, whatever, $30 for this game. So I'm subsidizing the development cost for a PC player to have more stuff than I have? That doesn't seem fair. And in a way, it's not. So, you know, all those things that need to be considered. And ultimately, it comes down to what the developer wants to do. And, you know, there are certainly a lot of when they took the independent, when they added independent rear suspension to the Mustang, when they took the solid live axle out, purists went crazy. But the testing and the focus groups and the research that Ford had done concluded that majority of people will never drive a Mustang in a way that is really going to make the most of that live rear axle. It's just a purist thing. But it makes for a much safer and much more comfortable car when you go to IRS, as they did. Purists went crazy. Hey, you know what? Purists don't represent the bulk of the market for the Mustang. The bulk of the market is casual drivers, just like the way the car looks. They're never going to race it. They don't want to drift it. They don't, you know, they just want to drive it. So any company, all companies have to be focused on the biggest part, the biggest share of their customer base and what that part wants. And that's, you know, it's one of those things that maybe you find yourself on the wrong side of that equation. It's nothing personal. It's just business. And I think at this point it's all resting squarely on the shoulders of the Cattle and Crops crew, whether or not they can pull it off. We do still have 17, but I'm curious if Cattle and Crops can give us the realistic and immersive farm sim that we've been craving. We'll see. We'll see. And you know what? Even if none of those things happen, doesn't matter. It's just a video game. It's just pixels. Nobody cares. All right, so we'll go right down here. I think we're going to make it to the headland, but I think we are going to be on about a 40-minute video because we're at 30 right now. So we come right back around here. I feel like I had my first few turns at the end of the field. I feel like I had them, and we just landed right on the next row. And the last few, we've had to back up and line it up again. Not good, not good. Okay, so this is the first row, the first length of our new set. Got the tool right there. Cruise control on. Here we go. Now, interesting. We're going to have a gap here because, you know what? We don't necessarily have to have a gap here. Let's risk it. Let's risk it, as they say. When we get right about over here somewhere, I'm looking at this row to the left, the next row to the left, and I think we can do this. I think we could add tramlines right there, and that will cover both sides. We are going to have some overlap, but again, in our scenario, we do have software in our sprayer, and we can have selective nozzle cutting, so we're not going to have, on this virtual farm, we're not going to have any overlap. Right. So we lift. Now, that row is going to be covered by the headland. Let's turn these off before we forget, and then we can decide whether or not we want to use them. Right around here. Try to stay out on the edge of the field. We do not want a row there. That will be covered by the headland. We're going to pick up over here. And this row, okay, this row will have a tram line. This is going to be weird, but I think it will make sense when it's done. I hope it does. I hope it does. Okay, back on cruise control. Drop the tool right about here. Yeah, it's not perfect. It's a little dodgy, but I think it will all make sense. So is that right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, our spacing is right. Our sort of bulk spacing on this end of the field is correct. It's just down there it gets a little creative. Yeah, that's a good word for it. Okay, so now we lift, we turn that off. We drive directly into that tree. Flip this around this way. Like so. Yeah. First couple I nailed it. Now I'm on that struggle bus. Alright, go back here. GPS. Drop the implement. Cruise control. Here we go. Time 34 minutes. Yeah, we'll be okay. Long video. But in the, I'll try to time out where the jump to the headland is, and I will link that in the description, so you can just jump ahead if you don't want to sit through all these rows. Right about here. That. Flip it around. I said flip it around. Like so. here. This is the first length of our new set. All right. Get that centered. Drop the implement. Back on cruise control. Okay. Now, last question is, how are we going to do on the edge of the field? As far as, you know, when we get over there, how are we going to do on a half row? We'll see. We'll just see when we get over there. So this is the first length of our new set. So then we lift that, turn that on, back there. That's slightly better. Slightly better. All right. Lower that. Here we go. Yeah, ideally our final tramline row will be one row in from the headland. Maybe. I mean, that would be fantastic if it worked out that way. And then that little corner over there may not get any love. But you know what? That happens sometimes. That happens. So we go right here. Stop right there. All right, lift. Turn that off. Flip it. Maybe. Maybe. There. Back on GPS, I said. All right, there's that. Lower the tool. Lower the tool. There we go. Yeah. This might somehow work out perfectly. I don't believe it. Find out in a minute. So this is the last length of the set that we're on. Our next length will be the first length of the next set. Okay. Just trying to keep count in my head. So we go here, thereabouts. Lift that. How'd we end up? How did we end up so close to the edge of the field? Thought I stopped sooner. All right, so turn this around. Like so. All right. Lower. Here we go. Yeah. I think our next length will be a tramline row, and then we'll have room for one more outside of that, which will be our headland. Okay. I guess it worked out. All right. So we go here. There. Turn that on. Flip this around. All right, like so. GPS. Lower. Cruise control. Wow. Okay. You know what? I'll take it. I will take it. And we can even, yeah, we might be able to get just a little bit more up in this corner up here. Just a little bit more. Okay. Stop right about there. All right, turn this off. Go back there. All right. GPS. Time 39 minutes. Perfect. Drop that. Here we go. few little gaps here and there. Nothing terrible. And these 4 fields combined, plus the 4 smaller ones on the other side of the highway, we're going to have so much canola. I know no farmer wants to waste any part of their field, but at the same time, I think there's certain just geometric realities that you can't work around. You know, you do your best, but you're going to have little gaps here and there. Right, so we'll go down here. Time, perfect. Down here. Here. So you tell me. Here's a quick question for you, not rhetorical. What bothers you more, when someone just paints a field and just hits it over and over and over with the seed drill till every possible square inch of it is covered, or when there are gaps in a field? What triggers you more? I'm curious. I'd say for me, I'm about split the difference. There is something very satisfying about seeing an entire field, every single bit of it covered. But there's also, I don't know what you'd call it. When you see a field that you look at it and you think, okay, well, those areas would be extremely difficult to get seeded. I understand why it looks that way. Both of those, I think, can be, give you the feels. Right, so we'll go right up this side then. Yeah, there's going to be some gaps here. But I think we did okay. I'm pleased with this result. So we'll go right up here. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier in the video, is I would love to see some type of a tool, some type of a laser that you can lay it out so that you line up the green line that runs side to side, perpendicular to the direction of travel. You line up that line with the line that is projected onto the field. And it doesn't need to be projected onto the entire field. It could simply be projected onto the end of that row. And you know where to lift. Or make it semi-automatic. Make it lift itself when you get to the end of that row. Or whatever. Just to bring some of these things together. Oh, are you kidding me? Right up here. Back on there. Oh, beautiful. And then this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. We go right about here. I would say in real life that's about as far over as you could take that, and so you are going to have that little triangular gap right there. So I think that's 43 minutes. Not too bad, not too bad. So we'll leave this running. It's been working hard. We'll hop out here. We'll come around. And we'll say, folks, thanks for stopping back to check out the Portable Gamer. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Farming Simulator 19. This is Charwell, and we'll see you next time. Take care now.